Good morning, everybody. Diggs here. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest. You can see the sun is just like flying through my window behind me right now. Today, we're going to be talking about all of the Espers that are out in both Global and JP. We're going to be doing surface level conversations about them. I was going to do a more in-depth guide, but I started doing that and I realized that I was going to be in for a much longer video. And I had promised some Twitch viewers that I would get this video out this week. So without further ado, let's dig in and talk about all of the Espers that are coming and currently in War of the Visions. Let's start off with the Espers that are going to be coming soon. That's going to be the Espers that are up in the upper left-hand corner. We're going to have Phoenix, we're going to have Freezes, and we're going to have Carbuncle. Now, of course, these are all going to be 3-star Espers. And they're going to be perpetuating the mono element kind of compositions, the single element compositions that we've really seen with a lot of the 3-star Espers. So you're going to see a lot of fire attack, ice attack, light attack on them. What's interesting about Phoenix is you're going to see some defense on Phoenix. On Freezes, you're going to see spirit resistance. So they have kind of their own niche uses. Of course, Phoenix is going to have bind resistance. Freezes is going to have confusion resistance. Confusion resistance, very powerful, very important. But what's probably most important here is going to be Carbuncle. Carbuncle does have berserk resistance. So if you're planning on Espers for the future, Carbuncle will be relevant, of course. It's only a 25% berserk resistance, but it will be important once we start seeing King Mont in the meta and his limit break starts berserking our characters. So keep Carbuncle in mind. And also there's another Esper we're going to be talking about as well that does have berserk immunity too. Transitioning to the Espers that are already in the game right now, let's start off with Igaion. Now, Igaion is one of those Espers where he has an amazing VC, right? So you're going to be wanting to pull his VC, particularly if you have, for example, Thunder God Sid, or if maybe Final Fantasy Tactics has made a comeback. The Esper itself, though, is a very complicated Esper, and I think Igaion is really an Esper that is best utilized with Spellblade type units. So that's going to be like Dario, that's going to be Howlet, that's potentially going to be Zombie Raryu. But even then, you might not want to use it for Zombie Raryu. You might want to use another Esper, either with more intelligence or maybe some more defense, depending on how you're choosing to build him. So Igaion is definitely not a beginner-friendly Esper, especially since you really have to understand how Spellblades operate. And Spellblades can be really complicated builds, and, you know, sometimes their modifiers really confuse people. Bahamut is absolutely an incredible Esper to start with. New players, if you get Bahamut, you should be happy. 100% recommend it. Bahamut does come with bind immunity once you get him to 3-star. And let's be honest, he's definitely the best magic Esper in the game right now. He has extremely high agility. Overall, just a very powerful, good choice if you do manage to pull him. Death Machine. Now, Death Machine was a limited time Esper and did come with the Death Machine VC, which gave area effect resistance. And of course, all of these come with VCs, but the Death Machine one really stands out to me. It came with the Final Fantasy I banner, and it's kind of just an okay Esper. I find that, you know, Golem pretty much does a very similar job to Death Machine. What's going to put Death Machine apart, though, is when the Final Fantasy I banner returns here in the near future, we are going to get the 3-star for Death Machine, which is going to come with charm resistance on it. Now, having just a little bit of charm resistance can be very powerful. And so this is an Esper I would actually recommend pursuing solely for the charm resistance, because you never know when you're going to be in a PvE situation or potentially a PvP situation where you're going to need that charm resistance. And there are some units in the game who will have immunity to Victoria's Charm, which is the highest, basically powerful charm in the game, if you do put Death Machine on them. So something to think about there. Demon Wall is also a limited time Esper that came out with Final Fantasy IV. Great Esper. It hasn't come out again in JP. It is a limited time. If you ever get the chance to pull on it, For an Esper, very good. Lots of resistances on it that make it very powerful. It's going to be one of those Espers that is defensive oriented, and really just, you can't go wrong with it. You can put it on mage characters to make them survive more. You can put them on offensive characters. You can put them on tanks. Very universal. Diablos is an interesting Esper. Now, Diablos does get his 3-star in JP, but Diablos is probably, besides Bahamut, the most damage dealing oriented magic Esper. Now, notice I didn't say the best magic Esper, and that's because I think there are other things that are important when you're considering magical units, agility being one of those factors. So I think Diablos is a solid like 3rd place for magical Espers. I really think Shiva comes after Bahamut. Shiva just so powerful with that speed. It has to be Shiva before Diablos for me. Otherwise, though, you can't go wrong with leveling Diablos if you do pull him. He does get sleep immunity with his 3-star. Definitely, it's not a mistake to level Diablos, but if you pull Shiva, it's better to go Shiva. Fenrir, a very universal Esper. Great for new players because he also has the VC, which gives magic resistance. Fenrir is one of those VCs that is... one of those Espers that is universal, and you're going to be using quite a bit. Anytime that there is a raid, sometimes even if it's a Trial of Reckoning, right? Anytime you're fighting an Esper, Fenrir has the ability to have Esper Killer on, so does Leviathan, and he also has lots of great abilities like slash attack up that are pretty relevant, right? So as an Esper, you are going to be using him for every single raid almost in the game, unless you're going up against like a pudding in a raid, because he is going to have that Nether Beast Killer innately on his board. He's going to give slash attack up, which most of the time you're using. And even if not, that Nether Beast Killer is going to be really powerful. This is going to be a VC and an Esper that really supports new players, and I would encourage everybody to go for Fenrir. Very similar to kind of this trend of like Fenrir being a little universal for newer players, Golem is also universal, and that's because Golem is a defensive Esper. He does have a 3-star in global now, and he does come with confusion resistance, which of course with Agrius being around, having that confusion, very relevant. Golem is one of those Espers you can use no matter what. The amount of defense that is on Golem, HP, you can always put defense and HP on a character. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, right? Back in the day when we first started playing the game, it was a really common strategy to put Golem on Ayaka when she was the only healer, so that Ayaka could take a hit, heal herself, take a hit, heal herself. And it was a very effective strategy. So Golem can go on healers. Golem also has access to Man-Eater. So Golem can go on DPS to make your DPS more defensive, more offensive as well. He's just an overall great unit. If there are 2 Espers for beginners to have to pull for and to look in their pulls and be like, oh, this is great that I got this Esper, Golem and Odin are them, probably followed up by Fenrir or Bahamut or Shiva. Ifrit is my #1 favorite Pierce Esper. Now, Ifrit has wonderful attack. He also has Pierce attack on his board. He has a couple resistances as well. Ifrit is one of those Espers that, you know, I pulled him in the beginning, and he's just kind of been there and served me reasonably well. As someone who's used Pierce compositions a long time, he's kind of my universal Pierce unit. You, of course, have other units like Titan now, or other units that give Elemental up. So you're not always going to Ifrit for that, especially with his 3-star form. He gets fire attack up. So it's kind of a tough go. I do love him, though. He does get some resistances to slow, for example. I think right now, with the lack of fire units that are really good, that are piercing, maybe don't chase him immediately. He could be good if you don't want to pull Phoenix, for example, for King Mont when he comes out because of the fire attack on him. But I would say just kind of hold off on Ifrit. It's good if you get him, not the best. Leviathan, the best Esper for water units, hands down, right? has insane water attack up on him. He also has really great Nether Beast killer / Esper killer, right? Very similar to Fenrir for those raids, that difficult content. You're going to be using Leviathan. There are water units that are very relevant right now, especially Tidus. If you're watching this video after the Final Fantasy X event, I would say Leviathan a little less relevant because not everybody is going to have Tidus if you're a new player coming to the game. But if you are someone who has Tidus right now, Leviathan, absolutely relevant. Must have, must get, not necessarily, right? Because Tidus and most of the water units can be enhanced by like slashing or piercing, right? If they're Glaciella, or if they're Glaciella, right? You could put like one of the other Espers on her. So there's just, you know, it's one of those situations where Leviathan's really great, especially if you have Tidus right now. There are other Espers though that can fill that role, that can go on Tidus, and it's not going to be as powerful, but it's going to be, you know, not a must-have right now. Odin, hands down, best Esper in the game. Even at his 2-star, I think he is the best, most recommended universal Esper in the entire game. Everybody needs to have Odin. Before Bahamut, I believe he was the highest agility Esper, and now I believe Bahamut is. Agility, very relevant in the game. He's going to have slash resistance, slash attack, man-eater, like all of the things that you need to be both offensive, defensive, a slew of resistances. He does get blind resistance with his 3-star form. His VC comes with single attack resistance, 20 for the party. So if you're a newer player, his VC is absolutely incredible to have as well. So all around, like, Odin is the Esper I always recommend to newer players. Omega. Omega recently came out, a little bit lower agility, but I do think that Omega is very powerful, and I think Omega is really important for newer players. The reason why, and it's very similar, right, to why I'm going to recommend Behemoth coming up here, is because the 3-star version gives dark attack up, and there are plenty of dark attack units that you are going to be using. Everyone's given Shadow Links for free. Dark Slash is a very relevant build, right? You're gonna be using dark units. Dark and light are the most prevalent units in the game, so having an Esper that increases dark attack, you know, is important to have. So I would recommend Omega for everybody. He is gonna have resistance to slowdown, pretty good, right? Could be worse. But yeah, I would say Omega definitely a must-have up there if you at least are thinking about a Dark Slash composition. Shiva, best magic Esper in the game. Next to Bahamut, like, Shiva was the fastest magic Esper in the game for a really long time. And I'm actually wondering, I'm going to pull it up right here now. I know you can't see what I'm looking at, but I'm looking at the 3-star stats of Shiva. So Shiva's 3-star stats actually make her the fastest Esper in the game, I believe. I'm on WoTV Calc right now on the side, so I'm just pulling it up to verify. Yeah, so actually Odin and Shiva both get 20 agility when they are fully maxed out at 3 stars, which is not released in global yet. So even then, Shiva is competing with Bahamut. Shiva is very relevant for all magic users, very accessible, a great Esper to have. I mean, if you're looking at Bahamut and you're like, I'm never going to get him, it's too far away, don't feel bad using Shiva. Shiva is incredible, and you should be happy to have Shiva. Shiva is my most used Esper probably in any of my magic compositions. I even have situations where I am using Shiva over Bahamut, for example, in the most recent Trials of Reckoning, because Shiva had Wind Killer, and so the enhanced modification from Shiva actually did more damage than Bahamut. So, you know, there's definitely situations where Shiva has the capacity to be on par or out damage Bahamut, especially since Bahamut is going to be focused on Man-Eater, right? So anytime, like if you're speccing into Man-Eater, you're basically throwing that spec out if you're fighting anything that's not human, and suddenly Shiva with magic up, magic attack up, which Bahamut also has, is going to be, you know, right up there with Bahamut if you're not fighting a human target. Siren. Now, Siren, I do believe, is still given for free to newer players, and Siren, I would 100% level and recommend. Siren is one of those Espers that is universal to put on any character, very similar to Golem, and that's because Siren has a very high slash resistance that you can spec into. Siren also has reasonable stats across the board. Siren also you know, has pierce attack. So if you are running a pierce unit, of course, you could put that on Siren. But the defensive capabilities of Siren are very powerful and not to be underestimated. Tetrasulfate, a little bit of a unique Esper, and an Esper that is really focused on ranged attack. There's only 2 Espers in the game that are based on ranged attack. That's going to be Tetrasulfate, and that's going to be Chocobo. You do have some missile attack Espers in the lower tiers, like Flodai, for example. It's really not relevant, though, and I would really only focus if you're going for missile attack with Tetrasulfate or Chocobo. You don't have either of those, go Odin, right? Like, put Odin or one of your Espers with Maneater on your ranged attack units. Tetrasulfate also the Esper with the highest evasion in the game. So if you are running evasion compositions, you could put Tetrasulfate then for an evasion composition. Tetrasulfate is a niche Esper, though, right? Tetrasulfate is an Esper that, you know, you're going to use if you have a specific purpose. And if you have that composition, that build that you're going to be using her with, you're going to use her. Evasion, of course, going out of favor. Tetrasulfate will get a 3-star, right? Which will be relevant, especially with 2B coming out, who is a wind-based evasion sword/pierce unit. But I really don't think evasion is kind of the direction the game is going right now. I think basically you're going to be using Tetrasulfate mostly for the missile attack, potentially for the wind attack when her 3-star comes out. Titan, a very unique Esper. Titan mostly known for pierce attack and spirit resistance. If there were, oh, my alert box was not turned off. Let's turn that off. I like that it was Calo Con Poo, right? Titan, I would say, kind of has an identity as like a magic resist piercing Esper. That's kind of all he does. I don't really use Titan that much anymore. I used to when Glaciella, or not Glaciella. No, was it Glaciella? Yeah, it's Glaciella. When Glaciella first came out, I used Titan with her a lot because she does get an exclusive buff from Titan's VC. But I really am kind of interested to see the identity of Titan shift, particularly for maybe Eileen, right? Because of course, when Titan gets his 3-star, whenever that happens on the JP side, it's probably going to be Earth Attack up, which means his Pierce Attack, Spirit Resistance, Earth Attack up is going to sync really well with Eileen. I would say most players, though, skip over Titan, focus on an Esper that's more relevant. Rama. Now, Rama is a little bit of a hot mess. Rama is one of the weaker magical Espers, and I would say he's the weakest of the UR magic Espers. Probably I would even put him at the bottom, right? There could be situations as well where even an MR magic Esper could surpass Rama. I would say if you have Rama, don't invest in him right away. Put him on the sideline. Really think about if you need him, right? If you have Shiva, if you have Diablos, do you really need a 3rd magic Esper? If you do, level him. But I really he's just kind of Rama, right? He's not as good as Shiva. He's slower. He has more magic plus, but he has less magic attack. So I would say you can invest in Rama, right? The lightning plus he's going to get from his 3-star form, pretty powerful, right? You could use it on like Skahal. You could use it. Gosh, I'm trying to think if there's any lightning spell blades out there, but I don't think there is off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't know. He's a confusing Esper. I would say beginners, I would stay away from him if you can, unless, you know, you're going like a pure magic build, then you could justify putting the Magicite in to level him. Two-Headed Dragon, very relevant VC, so you will be pulling for Two-Headed Dragon. The Esper, I am not a huge fan of him right now, and I know a lot of players are fans of Two-Headed Dragon. Low agility kills it for me, but the 3-star Berserk resistance for Two-Headed Dragon, I think is going to breathe enough life into him to make him really relevant for me. Now, I know lots of people love him. They love him for his resistances, for his slash attack up, and that's absolutely a justifiable reason. I personally just find him a little bit clunky to use, and yeah, that's just kind of my opinion on him. I think he will be very relevant, though, with 3-star, and I think he's going to be on a lot of units to try and counter King Mont. Typhon. Now, Typhon is the first Esper that we got with Elemental Attack Plus on him. He is a very good VC. Very good unit. I'm pretty sure he's limited, actually. Let me double check that before I tell you that, but I'm pretty sure he's limited. Oh. It's one of those things. I'm pretty sure he's limited to the little Leela Typhon VC. No, he's not limited. Okay. I don't know why I just, in my head, I was like, Typhon is limited, but he's not. Typhon, best Esper for like Howlet and Little Leela. That's about it. Helena, magic-based Esper with wind attack up on it, which means he's not going to be that relevant for like Yerma, for example, or Lucia, right? Because you're going to be using Tetrasulfate on them. So very niche. If you're watching this video and you're a newer player, you probably don't have Halloween Little Leela. Most players are not going to build Howlet, right? You're going to be focused on other units or more meta-defining units for the most part. So Typhon, very niche for players, but very powerful. Let's transition over to all of the other Espers in the game. Now, let's talk with the unreleased ones. It's going to be the Coral, which is going to have blind resistance. Coral going to be a very powerful Esper, and Coral will be coming out here soon in Global. Coral is going to come with like 16 agility, going to have 87 attack, going to be really powerful. Coral is also going to have missile attack and attack up on it. He's going to have increases lightning attack, right? So for Frederica, for example, going to be a very good Esper. Kraken will be coming out a little bit later, and Kraken is actually a very interesting Esper. 102 attack, very little magic, has slow immunity, and this is going to be coming out way down the road. It's going to have increased water attack, increased slash attack. You can get magic resistance on it, a little bit of critical damage, a little bit of fire killer, a little bit of water resistance. Overall, I mean, pretty good, right? I think the thing with Kraken to think about when he comes out is he's probably going to be better than Leviathan just for a little bit, since Leviathan does not have his 3-star yet, specifically for water slash units. So keep that in mind. Now let's go to the Espers that are out in Global right now. And we're going to start with the one, the only, Behemoth. Now, for those that don't know, Behemoth is my girl. And Behemoth shall be known as Behemoth forever in my channel. And I would ask that you all respect Behemoth enough to use her appropriate name, because she's my girl, right? Like I have Giant, he's my husband. Behemoth is my girl. Behemoth is, in my opinion, and this might be controversial, the best MR Esper in the game, and it supersedes many of the UR Espers. The reason for that is Behemoth comes with incredible base stats. It comes with paralysis resistance, slash attack up, dark attack up. All the things that you really need from Behemoth is gonna be kind of dominant in all of the characters that you have, right? So not only are you getting high agility, you're going to have dark attack up, slash attack up. You're going to have, critical damage up. You're going to have light killer up. You're going to have light resistance to offset the light weakness that Behemoth has. Behemoth is incredible, and I would 100% recommend Behemoth for every single player. Behemoth, very similar to Odin, universal, I feel like, and I think everybody, even though it's an MR Esper, should level them. Bloody Moon, right? We are in the MR phase, so we're going to start getting to some lackluster Espers. Bloody Moon is kind of like what I would describe as like an even lower barrel of the bucket Esper. I would say of all the MR Espers here, maybe it's second strongest of the magical MR Espers. It's a tough debate, right? It depends on really what the off stats are that you want on your unit. In terms of raw magical power, probably the strongest, but in terms of utility and ease of use, definitely not. Chocobo for missile attack. If you do want more missile attack, I would recommend Chocobo. Missile attack build, agility, very specific, right? But again, very good. Glacial, one of the first MR Espers with elemental attack up on it. Ice attack up, very powerful. Ice composition is very relevant, right? So if you are going to be running any type of an ice composition, you are going to want to be running Glacial. Iron Giant, while we only have the 2-star version in Global right now, we'll be getting a 3-star version in JP, and will have Charm Immunity, or Charm Resistance, basically. Anything with Charm Resistance, incredibly important, but Iron Giant is a universal Esper for slash units, and, it's one of those Espers that, again, kind of like Behemoth, everybody should have leveled. I don't like Iron Giant because of the lower agility, which is why I prefer Behemoth, but a lot of people prefer Iron Giant because it has higher durability, a little bit more HP, a little bit more attack, a little bit more slash attack, like really balances it out. Personally, I think you should just have both leveled, especially if you're coming into the game as a newer player. Just kind of keep that in mind. Lamia Queen. Now, Lamia Queen, I have never actually used. Lamia Queen kind of balances attack and magic at 48 each, has 12 agility when fully maxed out, and Lamia Queen is really going to focus on strike attack, strike resistance, right? Accuracy, going to have some attack on there, some ice killer. Probably one of the better Espers if you're running a strike unit right now, but you would probably run a unit with like Maneater or Elemental Attack up more. Like I would rather run Ifrit with Raldor, for example, with a fire attack build and resistance build. So I would say Lamia Queen kind of takes a back seat. Very similar with Malboro, right? Malboro is an Esper that, you know, a lot of people will say, you know, oh, I use Malboro. Malboro's okay. And Malboro does have about 14 agility, 76 attack, but not very much magic. Poison immunity, not that relevant in the game. But the 3-star form in JP does have strike attack and wind attack. Comes with like paralysis resistance, earth resistance. Probably the most important thing is magical resistance. And in JP, the 3-star form does get initial AP on the board. So I can see a case for 3-star Malboro being more relevant, right? Potentially with a wind fist element user, Malboro could be the best Esper for them. Right now in global in the 2-star form though, I would definitely backseat Malboro for more prominent wind Espers. That would be like Chocobo, that would be like Tetrasulfate, that would be pretty much, you know, I would even dump my Wind Magicite into Odin before I started doing Malboro. Malboro's just kind of back line. Marlith, one of the more recently released units, pretty low agility at 13, coming in as a main attack Esper. Marlith is going to have fire attack, increased attack, and Marlith really came out with Raldor and was kind of, I think, designed with Raldor in mind. But I think the base stats and the combination of, you know, really pierce resistance being the only other thing you're going to invest in besides fire attack, Marlith's 3-star is going to be interesting. But again, it's that situation where 3-star Ifrit is probably going to be better on any offensive unit that you're using. Again, not the worst choice though, so something to think about. Mind Flayer. Mind Flayer, the best magic Esper in the MR pool. A lot of people would disagree with this, and I have a couple reasons why I think Mind Flayer is the best, and let's get into them, right? Mind Flayer is one of those Espers that has really high magic, relatively low agility, but he's going to have really high magic nodes, he's going to have magic attack nodes, and then unlike other magical Espers, he's going to have access to Maneater. So instead of just modifying magic and magic attack, you're also going to have a Maneater modification. And so it's one of those situations very similar to Bahamut and Shiva, right? Where Bahamut has Maneater, so against human targets, he's going to be stronger than Shiva. Against non-human targets, probably about the same, right? Mind Flayer is kind of the opposite of that, right? Where against human targets, if you don't have Bahamut, but you have Mind Flayer and Shiva, Mind Flayer could be on par with Shiva. So it's one of those situations where I think Mind Flayer is an Esper worthy of leveling, particularly in your magic composition. I would rather use Mind Flayer than Ramu. That might be generally bad advice, but that would just be my thought, because most of the time when I'm running a multi-magic composition, I am running, right, like against Arena or something. Winter Moogle. Now, this is a limited time Esper given during Christmas time. Winter Moogle is going to get its 3-star form probably sometime soon. If not, we might have to wait until Christmas again this year. The 3-star form, I would say, is relevant because he gains access to silence resistance. So the silence resistance is relevant. There are of course other ways to get silence resistance in the game, but having that additional silence resistance is pretty good. Moogle's essentially a magic Esper, going to be getting lots of magic attack nodes. You are also going to be able to access magic resistance. on Mughals nodes. The 3-star version is going to offer ice attack, so potentially, you know, unless you have Shiva's 3-star or Bahamut going up against a human target, Mughal could potentially be like best in slot for Medina, right? But it would be a very kind of, again, like the stars have to align, kind of very similar with Mind Flayer, right? Or very similar with the difference between Shiva and Bahamut. Like, you have to understand the differences between, you know, fighting a human target, fighting a non-human target, when to have the correct Esper on, when to give those modifications to your characters. It can be very in-depth, a little bit confusing to understand which Esper is actually better than the other one in different situations. So just keep that in mind. Ochoo. Now, Ochoo is an interesting unit. Ochoo released back with Salir. Ochoo, interesting because it comes with 51 magic, 51 attack, extremely low agility, 9 agility. But Ochoo is one of those Espers that has magic accessible on its board right away, has slash resistance, and has access to multiple elemental resistances. So Ochoo has access to both wind resistance and lightning resistance. So Ochoo is a little bit of a niche Esper. I would never invest my Earth Elemental Magicite into Ochoo. I would like save it for Titan or Golem. But, you know, if you're a niche player and you're using like a niche elemental composition, could be viable. Red Chocobo came with the, oh god, Final Fantasy 1? No. Yes. I'm pretty sure it's Final Fantasy 1. Oh, it could be Final Fantasy 4 now. Oh, man, I'm going to have to... oh, I'm going to have to... trying to remember these Espers is hard, dude. It is hard. But Red Chocobo is one of those cards that is just really good. Like, I genuinely enjoy it. Red Chocobo has slash attack up. It has... oh, it was from Final Fantasy Tactics. Oh, okay. Sorry, it's from Final Fantasy Tactics. I was looking it up while I was thinking about it there. But it comes with, you know, attack 70, magic 31, agility 17. So it's a really fast MR Esper, which I love. And then it comes with attack on the board. It comes with dark resistance, missile resistance, slash attack, dark killer, evasion, accuracy. Almost everything on Red Chocobo's board is relevant. And it's a fast Esper. So if I need a slash Esper, a lot of the times I would rely on Red Chocobo. The VC also is very powerful. It has light attack up, really good for holy casters. Definitely recommend the Red Chocobo. Whenever the Final Fantasy Tactics event comes out, grab this Esper because it's really good. Tomberry, yeah, Tomberry's an Esper. Is kind of how I feel. I'm a little bit let down because I was very excited for Tonberry, right? 12 agility, 33 attack, 59 magic. I mean, Tonberry has magic attack, paralysis resistance, like slash resistance. He's kind of a mixed bag. Water resistance, water killer. Hard to recommend Tonberry. Definitely put your resources elsewhere. And now we're getting to the SR and below Espers. Candidly, people will tell you that these Espers are viable, and they're not wrong, but I would never recommend any of these Espers except for Cactar. And in very extreme circumstances, it would be very extreme circumstances, I would recommend Bomb and Flodai. And the reason for that is the difference in stats between an SR Esper and a UR Esper is absolutely critical, right? Like the amount of stats that are being given to your character, the gap is huge. The modifiers aren't as intense. The status resistances on the 3 stars are not as high. They're 15%. They're not 20 to 25%. It's just one of those situations where, you know, you really have to look at these Espers, know what you're doing in order to take advantage and use them. That being said, I would probably never use Ogre. Very similar with Zoo, I would probably never use Zoo. Bomb. Now, Bomb is a melee Esper. If you did not pull any good melee Espers and you don't have Ifrit, Bomb could be a good source of your Fire Magicite. Bomb has Maneater on it, which is reasonably good. if I were to level up Bomb, I would level up Bomb for a specific character in a specific situation to make sure that that character is always going to be powerful with Bomb equipped on them. Flowdie, it's hard for me to recommend. It does have Berserk resistance, but this is an ice element Esper, which means it's going to come with fire resistance down, which means when you go up against King Mont, right, the Berserk resistance is only plus 15%. You're going to have fire resistance down. You're going to get decimated. I would stay away from Flowdie. Cactuar. Cactuar 3-star came out. And there's a couple things that make Cactuar a unique Esper. And there's a couple things that also I will give a word of warning about, right? Cactuar is an Esper where you have to know what you're doing before you use him. He can be a very beginner-friendly Esper. Having 15% death immunity on him is important, right? Or 15% death resistance. No other Esper has death resistance, and many characters only have like plus 15 death resistance. So you could put Cactuar on those characters to make them, in some situations, death immune in PvE content. That is one situation. Cactuar also has very unique board abilities. Cactuar has Maneater on his board. Cactuar also has the highest critical hit rate on his board as well. So the combination of the highest critical hit rate, the highest human, or one of the highest Maneaters, we also in his 3-star form get more Maneater added on. His 3-star form doesn't add earth attack, it adds earth resistance, which is interesting. If you didn't want to go the critical hit rate Maneater route, he's also one of the few Espers that has a large amount of TP percentage increase, a large amount of base magic increase, and a large amount of magic attack. So there's kind of two ways that you can build Cactuar, right? He does come with 95 magic and 32 attack, so he's going to be leaning in the magic direction. So you're either going to want to build him potentially with magic attack and Maneater in mind, going for a magical Maneater magic attack build. If you're interested in magical critical hit rate, which I have never seen a build for that, you could do that. If you wanted maybe earth resistance for a specific event or a specific trial, you could do that as well. There's a variety of builds. You just have to make sure you understand what you're getting into when you do start putting Cactuar on your units. Cactuar is the only SR Esper that I use, and in the right situation, Cactuar can be equivalent to a UR Esper, but you really have to know what you're doing, and you really have to plan accordingly. I am careful recommending Cactuar to newer players. Newer players will have access to Cactuar, but if you are using him wrong, it could be a detriment to your account, right? Because not only are you pouring magicite and resources into Cactuar, you're also using him wrong. So if you are someone who maybe you had bad luck pulling Espers, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go the Cactuar route, really think about it. You can even come and reach out to me and kind of ask like, hey, how can I build my Cactuar? We would love to help you in my Discord, or if you come on any of my streams, but really think about it and make sure you know what you're doing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. If you do want to support me, please use my affiliate link at dig.gs/coins. As always, I hope this video was helpful. It was a little long. I'm really glad I didn't go into like the individual in-depth on every single Esper, but I kind of did. So maybe I won't do a more in-depth Esper guide. Please let me know what you want down in the comments below. And I will definitely kind of make whatever you guys need for the newer players out there. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.